Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Melfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. Today we have both. A man who has been at #1 4 times and sold just 70 million albums. Ali Campbell, how are you?
I'm fine this morning. How are you?
I'm not bad. I'm delicious, to be honest, because I'm talking to you and your music makes me feel good. I heard you on Terry Wogan the other week, and live you knock it out the park with that voice. What pressure is on you that you wake up in the morning and that voice comes out of your body?
Well, I don't feel any pressure. The thing is that it's my natural voice that I think has come with years of stress, basically. I had pleurisy very early on in my career, so I think I sort of squeezed my vocals out through my nose, according to doctors, which is why I've never had polyps or nodules, or any problems with my throat, because if you think about my voice, it's quite nasal.
It's extraordinary, though, and hearing it live is just tremendous. I saw you in Nottingham a couple of years ago, and of course you've got the beat, which is going to help make your music uplifting. To be on stage doing these songs, She's a Lady probably is one of my favourite songs you've ever done. I know it's strange because probably nobody's heard of it, but you just made it your own, and it's so moving and brilliant. How does it feel when you're on stage doing these songs?
Well, that particular one I enjoyed immensely because I was joined by the wonderful Lady Saw on our 21st birthday celebrations, I think that was. Well, Lady Saw is a great hero of mine, or heroine of mine, I should say. She's basically the #1 female vocalist of Jamaica, and she's been doing what she does for a very long time now. So it was an absolute joy.
Is it fun being you? I mean, you can more or less work with who you want. Everybody knows you. UB40 is an international brand. It doesn't get much better, does it?
No. I mean, I've just come back from a gig I played with the Philharmonic Orchestra, and I was with Luciano and John Holtz, the wonderful John Holtz, who, bless his heart, is a little bit ill at the moment, so we all wish him the best. But, to be up there singing with John Holtz, it's like I have to pinch myself sometimes. I recently did a gig at the Roundhouse in Camden with Jimmy Cliff,
Wow.
I sang The Harder They Come with him, and again, I just have to pinch myself, and these are all my heroes, And when we did the Father's album, I think that was like the pinnacle. We're always asked why we played reggae, so we did the Labour of Love series, covering all the songs by our favourite Jamaican artists, and then we got a chance to make an album with all our favourite artists singing our songs, called the Father's album, and it just doesn't get any better than that,
I know I've asked you this question before, but for those who are in this interview for the first time, your love of reggae, where did it come from? How did that happen for a guy from Birmingham that fell in love with this place?
Well, I come from South Birmingham, a place called Borsall Heath, which in the 50s and 60s was predominantly West Indian and Asian, so the reggae was the music of the streets, and I grew up with reggae. Reggae came about in about 1967, 68, coming out of Rocksteady, and Rocksteady came out of ska, but I was too young for that era. So I grew up, like my West Indian friends, listening to reggae as it formed, so I've lived and grown around reggae music, and I love it, and that's why I started UB40 in the first place, was to promote reggae.
And again, it's so sincere. It could look very silly, couldn't it? A guy from Birmingham trying to take on this music because it's so unique and different and brilliant. How did you make it so natural? Is it just because it's part of you, you grew up with it, and you're sort of so immersed in that community, and they love you as much as you love them?
Absolutely. I grew up going, at 11 years old, I was sneaking out of my house, or out of Norman's mum's house, actually, and we'd go to blues, and to shebeens. So I was tolerated because I was a little 10-year-old, little white 10-year-old kid. So I wasn't seen as a threat or anything, and I grew up going to those places, so I truly did grow up listening to reggae and to dub, as it should have been listened to, coming out of wardrobe speakers and in shebeens and those sort of places. So yeah, it's just totally natural for me, and because I've worked with so many Jamaican artists, young and old, you know, I think that in Jamaica they understand that what moves me is reggae, you know, and we're there for the right reasons, you know.
I was covering a story in Birmingham the other day about problems with one community hating another and how it's not working and how there's this divide. Isn't it interesting that when you were there all those years ago, there was not a problem? It's somehow gone wrong, not just in Birmingham, all over the country. The moulding of communities has broken down, hasn't it?
Absolutely. You know, I highlighted this in a documentary I did for the BBC about 5 years ago. It's like a self-imposed segregation that, you know, this generation's done, and I think it happened with you know, the advent of hip hop. You know, hip hop came over, and the generation of kids sort of took that under their wing, and it became about area codes. You know, and of course, you know, America is the most racist country in the world, and you know, all they care about is what colour anybody is, and so what's happened is our kids have adopted this, you know, this self-segregation. You know, you get black gangs and white gangs and Somalian gangs. And, you know, in the 80s when we were starting, if you'd have took 8 kids out of Borsal Heath, they would have looked like UB40. You know, it would have been a multi-racial lump. Whereas if you take 8 kids out of Borsal Heath now, they'd either be Asian, or they'd all be, you know, Somalian, or they'd all be white, Irish. You know what I mean? And it's very sad, yeah. And I believe that, you know, it's because we adopted the American way. You can see what's happening in America right now, you know, with the race riots and stuff.
It's interesting as well that reggae's backbone is one of love and peace. Hip-hop's about hate and anger, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well,
I've not thought of it.
Know, but most of it is, yeah. You know, and reggae is about, you know, love and unity and peace. And it's about bringing people together, you know, not segregating them.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You're still working all over the world. What is it like being you now? I mean, you first stood on that stage nearly 40 years ago, let's face it, we won't tell anybody, and you're still as popular today. Is that the greatest affirmation for an artist, that you're still relevant, current and bringing out albums?
Well, I think it's, yeah, and it's because of reggae, you know. People all over the world love reggae. There's actually a song on the new album singing where we say that, all cool people love reggae music. And I think when people go, you know, what's your secret to your success? There's no secret. The success comes from the fact that people love reggae music, you know, and you know, that's why we love it, because it's the greatest music. It's the youngest music in the world, you know, and it's not a negative music, you know. It's like you said, it's the music that brings people together rather than forces them apart.
I first spoke to you, we did an in-depth interview at the BBC, and you just left UB40, and at that time I think you were upset and angry, and you had every right to be. It's interesting hearing you talk just the other week that that's all gone now, and it's sort of worked itself out, hasn't it? Karma.
Well, I think that the fans are starting to vote with their feet, really. You know, it's, you know, when Astro came back to the fold, you know, and there was a very definite movement towards coming back to us, because people didn't want what the old UB40 had done, which was a country album, you know. It was like the biggest shock, and actually I feel that they really let the fans down, you know, by doing that. And Astro, obviously. So it's sort of, Astro's come back to the fold, and people are now going, it's like there's a conclusion, you know, at last, you know, they're all saying, at last, we've got UB40 back. Right.
But without you being the voice of UB40, there isn't a UB40. I mean, you were it. That was what made it so distinctive. And I think that was the flaw in their campaign, wasn't it, really?
Well, really, when I left, what they did was they let the guy who wrote all the melodies leave, you know, all the way through the UB40 career, 24 albums, all the original songs, which there was 21 albums of, I did all the melodies, you know. Different people wrote the lyrics, but I was the melody man. And of course, when I left, they found themselves not able to write any melodies. Right. And they're still, you know, they're still suffering from that now.
There's a big problem, isn't it? For you, what are you most proud of? Is there one riff? Is there one line? Is there one song that you can't wait to do in every show?
Well, I love doing the show that we're doing now. You know, few tracks off the new album, you know. So what we're doing is, because we play so many festivals and stuff, we do a greatest hits show, and I'm very proud of that, you know, because there's not many people that have had as many hits as UB40. You know, we had 40 top 20 hits, you know, in the 80s and 90s,
yeah.
And I am constantly proud that I can go out, I can rock up anywhere with a great band, and I can play for an hour and a half, and the audience will know every song, you know, and we can do that all over the world, you know, Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, you know, Uganda, you know, Mozambique, Angola, everywhere we go, people know the songs, and that's what I'm proud of.
Do you still get nervous? Is there still a tingle in the bottom of your stomach when you walk out on stage?
I'll leave that tingle in the bottom of the toilet after that. Yeah, I'm always very, very nervous before a show, and it's never changed. And I think if I stopped getting nervous, I'd be a bit worried.
Yeah. What's interesting about your career, and I was thinking about this the other day, show business has become very mucky and murky. You seem to have kept your nose very clean and kept out of all the nonsense of it. What do you think is going on with show business? Do you worry about it? Do you care, or do you just do your own thing and let them get on with it?
Well, I think that, you know, things change every 10 years, you know. A new format comes along, you know, video killed the radio star, and, you know, CDs killed vinyl. Downloads have killed CDs, you know, and now we've just had a 10-year era where reality television and not reality television, you know, talent show television has run the charts.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all been very odd. But what you have to do is you have to ride with it, you know, and you have to adapt, you know, to the situation. Okay, so we have to go for downloads now rather than making CDs, you know, and instead of a gig being an advert for your CD, as it was in the 80s and the 90s, now a CD is an advert for your gig, you know. But you have to adapt, you know, otherwise you do disappear. And people, you know, artists who weren't very weren't a live act, they've all disappeared, you know, because you just can't survive on CD sales anymore.
Yeah, and it's a shame because the record companies won't back you anymore, will they? I mean, that was what sustained your career.
That's right. You don't get any tour support. Most of the major record companies have been bought up and merged. You know, there was a period when all the fantastic studios in London were all just closing down. Olympic and Eden and the Townhouse, all the very famous big studios, they've all gone. You know, they've all become part of an umbrella company that's just basically knocked them down and started again. I went past the Townhouse the other day, and it was really depressing to see that it's being demolished, you know.
What about all this Operation U-Tree stuff and the private life? Have you ever worried about people sticking their nose into your private life? Not that I'm alluding that you've done anything wrong in your past at all, but do you think they have the right to do this? It seems to me naming people before they've even been found guilty of anything seems extraordinary and incredibly mean and career-threatening.
It's absolutely disgusting, you know, and what happened to, you know, innocent until proven guilty, you know. We've got to the stage now where we're all guilty until we're proved innocent. It's a shocking, you know, situation, and it's quite disgusting, you know. The newspapers in England are disgusting and always have been, you know, but they get worse, and I agree, you know, this delving into your private life, you know, becomes more important than anything else. It's all, you know, it's very slimy, isn't it, you know.
It also makes me sad that people who have had indiscretions with women are suddenly put in the category of paedophile, which they're not. Now, I'm not saying they're good people or nice people, but there is a very big difference, isn't there?
It's absurd, especially, you know, in our business when, you know, growing up in the pop band, you have kids throwing themselves at you, you know, and, you know, most pop bands are kids themselves, and, you know, they go along with partying and then get sued for it, you know, 40 years later. It's nonsense, you know.
Have you had to change how you operate now, whether you're with somebody privately? Do you worry about it, or do you just get on with your life?
Well, I was papped when I was a judge in New Zealand, and, you know, there was a paparazzi hiding in a bush underneath my flat, and I was papped, you know, in a very uncompromising sort of position, looking up at me with me belly hanging over me. trousers and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So I've had that stuff. And the thing is, there's nothing you can do about it, you know. There's no laws or anything to stop people, you know, hiding in a bush and taking pictures of you having a coffee on your, you know, on your balcony. It's just ludicrous.
I think what's even more worrying now, when the police are being complicit in leaking these stories, as we saw last week with Cliff, and of course we don't know whether he's innocent or guilty or anything, and I'm not talking about him, but it's disgraceful.
That will probably make it, all of the evidence or any evidence that they get inadmissible, because they've gone about it in such a disgusting and underhand way.
Yeah. And for somebody to have helicopters above their house, not knowing they're going to be there before the police have even arrived, somebody's got to be sued, haven't they?
You'd hope so, you know, but the thing is, in this day and age, you know, you've got to be very, very wealthy to sue anybody, you know. It's the way that the legal system is, you know. If people sort of, if you're accused of something and you have to prove yourself innocent, you're very likely to run out of money before that happens, you know, because of the law system, the legal system is disgusting in this country as well.
What also makes me sad is one person making money out of a story can literally bring you down and ruin your career. I mean, how do you fight back?
His life, you know. I mean, I go back now a couple of years, and do you remember the actor, Len, you know, who played Len Fairclough?
Yes, I do.
In Coronation Street.
Yep.
You know, he was accused by somebody of doing something in a swimming pool with a child. He was completely exonerated. You know, he was found completely innocent, but he ended up, you know, dying penniless. You know, sacked from his job, and it was his life they ruined, not just his career.
It's a funny old world we're living in at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the media are controlling the whole country. You know, the government are a bunch of simpering idiots and con men, and it's the press that run things. You know, and if they feel like they're going to bring somebody down, they will. You know, and it even happened to them. You know, with Max Clifford coming down. You know? That was a turn up.
Yeah, it was. Are you glad to be out of it? I mean, you mostly live outside of the country now, don't you?
Well, I spend a lot of time on tour, but now I'm still living in, you know, down in the south of England. I love where I live. But, you know, everything's so guarded, and, you know, you've got to be careful what you say, what you do, who you're with, you know, and it's pretty boring. But we were never part of that, you know, that sort of showbiz set. And we kind of tried to stay, you know, autonomous from all that. That's why UB40 stayed in Birmingham, you know, because we didn't want to be part of the Groucho set in London, you know. We wanted to be just doing what we're doing and keep ourselves to ourselves, and quite wisely, I think.
Let's talk about this new album. I haven't heard the whole thing because it's not out yet, but what I have heard is extraordinary and brilliant and is so you. Are you proud of it?
Yeah, you know, I'm on a journey with production, and you know, I've been producing UB40 stuff since we started, along with, you know, other UB40 band members. Now I've produced my own. This is my fourth album that I've produced on my own, and you know, they get better each time, and I'm happier with the result each time. And this new album called Silhouette is my best one yet, you know, and I think the fans are going to absolutely love it, especially given the disastrous offering that they had from the Dark Side, you know, the country album. I think this is what everyone's been waiting for, and it was put back so that we could put Astro on the tracks, and what he's done is great, you know, and it's a great sounding, happy UB40 album, 100% reggae.
Do you realise how good you are and how unique you are and how talented you are at what you do? I mean, it is extraordinary, your voice. Can you hear it like I can?
No. No, in a word. You know, I just try my best, and you know, my influences are what made me. You know, that's why I sing like I do. You know, I listen to a lot of Jacksons growing up, Beatles, of course, Stevie Wonder, and you know, I think that's what moulded my singing voice. And then when reggae came along, I sort of put my voice, my soul voice, I suppose, to reggae. You know. That's what we got.
Well, you're hugely talented. Your new album's called Silhouette. Thank you for talking to me again, Ali Campbell. I'm going to come and see you on tour. www.alicampbell.org is the website. You can find out all the tour dates. Ali, thanks so much for coming on, and I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, man. Respect, right?
Good to talk to you.
Yeah, man.